WITSO.net, WITSO's professional business network. Usually we see you face to face, however, we had to cancel all our events. So we are having lovely conversations with interesting individuals online that can share with us their expertise, whichever the subject is. I am Osnat Mas, I'm WITSO's Philanthropy Manager. And today we have Stephen Brower. Stephen is a partner and the head of property for Edwin Co. And he is also WITSO UK's trustee. Hello, Stephen, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
No problem, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. I had a lot of questions planned, I must say, and I must say to whoever is listening or viewing that everything we are saying is correct for the time of recording. So I had a lot of questions lined up, and just before our conversation started, I saw that basically the property market is shut down. So
well, yes
what
and
does
no.
it mean exactly?
Yes and no. Okay, so basically it's been a massive amount of turmoil, particularly the last week or so. Mm-hmm. And it's really a very much an ongoing process because there are so many things that have to be thought about and so many sort of, I suppose, issues to cover across many parts of the property market. It's a very diverse market. It ranges from residential transactions where people are buying and selling houses to commercial properties. It's a huge part of the economy. And it touches many businesses and it touches many individuals in many ways. And it's because it's such a completely unknown situation, it's been very much, using the well-worked expression, very much working out on the hoof. And this is still going on. There's been various government statements over the last 3 or 4 days about many aspects, both covering self-employed as well as covering people who are employees, mm-hmm. and also to an extent many statements or really pieces of advice in terms of the property market. And there are still certain areas which have still not even been covered yet and will have to be covered depending on how long this goes on for.
Yeah, I know that everybody is expecting the government to come up with answers, but I think there isn't even one person anywhere in the world that had anything, planned for something like this. This is not something that we expected. And now when they talked literally just a few minutes before we started about closure of the housing market, they meant from the mortgage companies more than anything that asked, the government basically was asked by them to put a halt on things, and the government complied. What does it mean that even requests for mortgages that were already in the process are going to be frozen, or does it mean that only new ones are not going to be taken into account at the moment?
Okay, so again, we need to split it down to different areas. We've got many transactions where people have been looking to move house to buy and sell or move into new properties, and people have actually already exchanged contracts and are contractually committed to actually move house. Now, people who haven't exchanged contracts on a transaction yet have been advised by the government not to proceed with the transaction because of the uncertainty. If people obviously now exchange contracts, it's a very uncertain situation in terms of what's going to happen when they come to actually the completion day. And that's on top of the mortgage market. The banking market has been very badly affected as well. We've had 2 or 3 completions certainly this week, and I think on Tuesday or Wednesday, where we couldn't get mortgage money from a bank because I think it was Barclays Bank do all their processing of mortgage payments out of India, and India's on lockdown. So we had a situation on that particular day waiting for mortgage money to come in, but they couldn't come out of the bank because everything was being done via India, and there was nobody in India to actually approve and send the monies. So we managed. We got a workaround in the end. It meant the completion was delayed to the following day. So the banking market, particularly the mortgage market, is in a fair amount of turmoil. And because of sort of the limited number of employees, because of offices being closed, and all banks pretty much working from home in terms of the individuals they have, there will be, I think there'll be no new mortgage offers coming out, and certainly some of the banks and lenders have said that they have closed for new applications for the time being. So anybody who's looking to sort of progress on a sale or purchase which isn't exchanged by way of contracts, going to struggle to get a mortgage. So it's going to really mean that the new transactions are going to slow down, well, basically completely stop.
I understand. Another thing is obviously, I think that all agents were asked not to list new properties, and also they cannot arrange for viewings anyways at the moment. So when we are going to go back to normal, whatever it may be, what do you think the market is going to look like? Would it be, do you think, in your opinion, would it be more like a buyer's market because of all this, frozen in time we are experiencing right now?
I think it's my own personal view is that the market we're going to see is going to be very much, it's going to be a very slow market. Once everybody leaves home and goes back to work and the market revives. I've seen many recessions in my time. They are of different degrees, different lengths of time. I just think this one, because of the circumstance, because of what's actually caused this particular problem, and probably recession, I'm hoping as well, it'll be quite a sort of almost V-shaped in the way the market and generally the way the economy will come back. But it's certainly going to be a period of time where not a lot's going to happen. As professionals in the marketplace, we've had 2 or 3 years since the Brexit decision was made. The vote was actually held. It's been a sort of not the best of times because people have been very nervous. People haven't had the confidence. And generally, most people are buying and selling houses, unless they're professionals. The average person buying and selling houses and properties generally, so much is driven by confidence. So clearly confidence is knocked by what's happened. The figure is going to be horrendous, I think, in terms of they actually show the true economic effects it's going to have on GDP. So there will be a period of time whilst that confidence builds up again. With low interest rates and all the other factors involved, then I think there'll be very few new transactions happening. People are going to wait and see, and then at some point it will revive, and it hopefully will go back to where it was. It's just been a bit of a pity because we had this sort of the fantastic Boris bounce. We saw all of a sudden it's going to be great for everybody, and everybody's going to be confident, people moving houses, and companies are going to be investing money, and all of a sudden overnight we've had this coronavirus.
Yeah, when you talk about a V-shaped market, do you think it will affect regular people? Because basically when it's getting to the lowest, usually it means the professional buyers will be in there pushing out the regular buyers, even the ones that will have the bit of confidence to do that.
Yeah, that's all. We've always seen that coming out of a recession. It's a question of when people see the bottom of the market being hit, whether people who are the average consumer, whether they actually have confidence to actually go back in and start buying a property and selling a property. And you're right, and it's also particularly those who are sitting on cash, they always do best. And that's something that I found with clients in the past, the times they make the most money is times of recession, because I've seen many clients who have bought properties at very, very low prices because there were very few other buyers out there. They had the money, they could move quickly, and people were pretty desperate to sell the property for various reasons. I think we'll see a bit of that, but I think with the government support they're offering, which is pretty much to tide many people over, particularly now the self-employed that came in yesterday in terms of the announcement made by the Chancellor. I think people will not be necessarily forced sellers because hopefully the recession will be quite short. Whereas in the past, where it's gone on for several years, people have had no choice but to sell. Hopefully, we're not going to have anything similar in this situation.
I understand. And do you think that there is a difference between residential and commercial markets at the moment, or do you think that the effect is similar on both?
I think the effect is similar. The very different marketplaces. The commercial market is very much finance driven. To an extent, the residential market is as well, but certainly most commercial investment properties are financed. There are a few buyers who buy just with cash, but I think they're probably in a relatively small number. At the moment, the commercial market is been very badly affected because another government, well, it's not really, I suppose it is a policy, it hasn't yet come out in the bill, but effectively what the government has said is that any commercial tenant who has been adversely affected by coronavirus effectively does not have to pay their rent for the current quarter. So from 25th of March was the current rent quarter date. And I think without exception, most tenants have not been willing to pay. Even the tenants who can pay have jumped on the same bandwagon. And we've been seeing this very much the last 2 years with there's been a number of particularly large retail companies who've pushed forward in terms of getting what's called a CVA, corporate voluntary arrangement. And they have managed to sort of avoid paying rent. And actually, they've also managed to get rid of quite a lot of properties which were not economic for them. So the marketplace has become particularly the tenants in the marketplace become very familiar, very used to this situation where landlords have effectively had to sort of carry the can for tenants whose businesses have sort of become very problematic. And we've seen it, many of our clients have seen it almost in some property portfolios, almost without exception. Every single tenant has said, I can't pay the rent, even though where the clients, the landlords know that quite a lot of them actually can pay the rent. And when people are challenged, they do come up with money. The difficulty at the moment is that, say, all commercial tenants are potentially entitled not to pay rent because the main part of the policy is that the landlords cannot kick them out of the properties for the next 3 months.
Yeah. Okay. And one last thing, I know we cannot predict the future, but what do you think would be the impact on prices, whether it is residential or commercial, with months to come, especially the way the government is laying, now policies and other, ways of dealing with it? Do you think it's going to take a certain direction?
I think having seen recessions in the past, I think this recession is going to be probably different in terms of how long it will go on for. I think it's also going to make a huge difference. Low interest rates are going to mean that most property owners who are sitting on properties which have debt against them will have an element of stress because in the commercial market, as I said before, many commercial tenants haven't paid rent. But a lot of people can weather that storm. I was actually speaking to somebody who I deal with quite a lot this morning, who's a property agent who are basically selling properties, and she sells a lot of properties. She says, as of today, most property owners are, she says, being unrealistic and effectively not willing to actually drop prices. And that's probably because they don't have to yet. There are always going to be the odd few who have no choice, they're under pressure, or they have to complete on a transaction. They have to, in some way, either find the money or to find a buyer to buy from them. But I think if it's all about timing. If the current situation goes on for 3 months, that's one thing. If it goes on for longer than 3 months, I think that is probably what's going to have the sort of the significant difference as to how the market will deal with and how prices will sort of reflect what's currently happening.
So do you have, before we finish our conversation, do you have any recommendation for, people on what they should do now?
I think it's all about taking advice. It's all about managing things properly. We have most of our clients who are landlords on portfolios are talking to tenants. A few have been quite upfront even before the rent quarter day. They spoke to tenants. They sort of prepared to agree accommodations. I think reality is it's the sort of the old cliche, we're all in this together. So we have to work our way through. And having unrealistic expectations is not going to help anybody. It's going to create problems. And I think everybody has to have a plan, but it's got to be a plan that takes account of all the circumstances. And people need to talk. It's all about landlords and tenants, and also on residential transactions. It's if you have some transaction that's currently in the process of actually you've exchanged contracts, completions coming up in the coming weeks. It's all a question of the parties talking. One of the slightly sort of digressing, one of the big problems at the moment that the people are having in the residential market is that people can still get their mortgage monies.
Yeah.
Generally, the people want to move and actually buy and sell that property. Big problem is actually the removal companies, in many cases, have actually stopped working because of the concerns with coronavirus. And we're finding people the main issue they have is not getting the mortgage money. It's not the lawyers being available. It's the actual removers are just not there to actually physically move them.
I saw basically that the government also urges people not to move, whether it's renting or buying. There was an announcement that they say they urge people not to move and to wait for everything to start rolling again.
We're advising clients the same way.
Where you are.
But we had a client today who effectively is they've actually vacated their property. They're allowing their buyer to come in a week early, so it's not going to be sort of a problem on the day of completion. So that's a classic case of people actually resolving these issues by talking sensibly and coming to a suitable agreement.
I think as long as people will be kinder to one another, then it can work. Because from my personal experience, I can tell you, my landlord, the first thing that he did was to text my husband and I to say, if there is any problem, if there is anything you need, let me know, I'm here for you. But he's a lovely guy. Unfortunately, not everybody is.
But I think it should be a bit more that way.
That is true. That is true. Stephen, thank you very, very much for your time. And we will see you guys at the next conversation. Thank you very much.
Thanks.